He just wanted to create a game that he himself would have loved to play. And that, right there, is the first rule, carved in stone and lit with dramatic backlighting. Make the game you want to play. In other words, build something you know inside and out. Create from a place of passion and deep personal understanding, talent and will over skill. When Sunfall was hiring, they were obsessive. They weren't looking for the most impressive resume, they were looking for a specific kind of person. In his own words, Guillaume was looking for the real spark in their eyes. You can teach skills, but you cannot teach passion. Hire talent, and then, for the love of all that is holy, let them work. We are obsessed with hiring the right people, but the moment they walk into the door, we start interrupting them. But if you've done your job right, if you've actually hired a team of talented, passionate people, then guess what? They are better at their jobs than you are. That's the whole point. Konnichiwa. Welcome to the AI Automation Dojo, where we look at the corporate world's obsession with doing things the biggest, most expensive way possible and ask, are you guys okay? Today we're putting down our process maps and picking up a controller to talk about a video game. I know, but trust me, we're diving into the shocking, brilliant story of Clair Obscur Expedition 33. I'm your host, Andrzej Kinastowski, one of the founders of Office Samurai, where we believe that a cohesive vision is worth more than $1 billion budget. So, whether you're a team lead trying to inspire greatness, a CEO wondering why throwing more money at a problem isn't fixing it, or just a fan of a damn good story, you're in the right place. Now grab your favorite katana, or in this case a +5 sword of unbelievable financial efficiency, and let's get to it. I only have the time to play about 2 video games a year, and earlier this year I decided it was time for one. Time for a new video game. I fired up the store, ready for the digital parade of usual suspects. You know the drill. The endless sequels, the remasters of games I already played in another lifetime, the annual sports title with a slightly different roster, and a brand new price tag. I scrolled past generic Space Marine Shooter 6 and the definitive HD remix of a game I barely remember playing on a console that now doubles as a doorstep. And then I found something that looked different, a game called Clair Obscur Expedition 33. And let me tell you, after I started playing, I had a full-blown Keanu Reeves moment. I got through the prologue and I just went, whoa! I thought, fine, anyone can make a great prologue, let's see where it goes. I finished the first act and I went, whoa. 40 hours later, as the credit rolls on the ending, it was a whoa, hold on. Because I genuinely, desperately did not want it to end. I loved this game. I don't mean, oh, that was fun diversion for a weekend. I mean, I loved this game in a way that you love a brilliant book or a life-changing film. Everything just worked. The graphics weren't just pretty, they were a moving painting with a style so distinct, every frame was a painting. The music wasn't just a background track, it was the story's heartbeat swelling and receding with perfect emotional timing. And the characters, these weren't cardboard cutouts, spouting generic fantasy dialogue about taking an arrow in the knee. They were fully fleshed, believable, flawed people brought to life with a level of motion capture and voice acting I don't think I have seen before. It's been a long time since a piece of media, any media, has impressed me this much. And for those of you who aren't avid gamers, you should know this kind of experience is fundamentally rare. You go into the digital petting zoo expecting to see the same tired goats and a deeply unenthusiastic llama, but instead you find a unicorn. It just doesn't happen very often. To give you some context on why this is such a unicorn, let's talk about the video game industry right now. Most of the games you hear about are what we call AAA titles. These are the big budget, big team, big marketing campaign blockbusters, usually part of a franchise that's been around since the dawn of time. Now, you probably don't know this, but a typical AAA game has a core team of anywhere from 250 to 500 people. The core doesn't count contractors, voice actors, orchestra, or the person who orders the pizza. For the biggest titles, like Red Dead Redemption 2 or GTA 5, we're talking 1,000 people or more. The budget, a cool 150 to 500 million. Yes, you heard that right, that's Hollywood blockbuster movie money. We're talking about a group of people the size of a small town and a budget that could probably fund a mission to Mars, all to create something that half the time is buggy on launch and requires a day one patch the size of a small country's GDP. After 5 to 8 years in this development pressure cooker, these games hit the shelves at around $70 a pop, with studios already whispering sweet nothings about making $80 the new standard. It's a business model built on brute force. It's a recipe for bluntness, because when you spend that much money, you can't afford to take risks. You end up with the interactive equivalent of a beige Toyota Camry. It gets you there, sure, but nobody's writing songs about it. And after all that, most of them, well, they don't exactly set the world on fire. A game is considered a success if it sells between 1 and 5 million copies. Anything less than 1 million is a certified disaster, and trust me, there have been plenty of those. There are, of course, smash hits that will sell 20, 30, 50 million copies over a few years. They are a rare breed, though. Even with all that money and manpower, these games often get mixed reviews. A 7 out of 10 on Metacritic is pretty standard, which basically translates to, it was okay. It's the participation trophy of video game reviews. It means you showed up, you rendered some polygons, the game didn't set my PC on fire. Good job, I guess. Now, back to our hero Expedition 33. After I finished it, I hit the internet, bracing myself to find out that my newfound love was a niche obsession. But what I found was startling. The game was getting rave reviews from every major outlet, and the YouTubers, just listen.
This game deserves all of the hype and all of the success that it's receiving and more.
Oh my god, mate. No, this is an awesome game, man. That's so good.
Why is this so good?
Like, I am so into this game. I've been having so much fun playing this game. Do you think it's Game of the Year? No, I don't think it's Game of the Year. I know it's Game of the Year. It's going to be Game of the Year 100%.
Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is a masterpiece. It is a triumph. It is phenomenal. It's all I can think about. I love it dearly.
I don't know how you move on after this. Like, how do you play another game after playing such an amazing game?
We could go on, but I think you get the point. Then I went to Metacritic, and this is where the story goes from great game to industry-shaking phenomenon. As of this recording, the user score for Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is 9.7 out of 10. That's not just high, it's a statistical anomaly. It's the kind of number you see when the system is broken. It implies a level of universal acclaim that's usually reserved for things like pizza or puppies. The next closest is a 9.3. That gap isn't a small step, it's a chasm. My instincts, it turned out, were not wrong. The game has already sold 5 million copies as of October 2025, and it did so at a modest price of $50. But here's the real kicker, the part that should be giving executives night sweats: the team and the budget. This masterpiece was created by a core team of just over 30 people. The budget, while not officially disclosed, is estimated to be no more than $30 million. Let that sink in. Let's do some simple back-of-the-napkin math here. They used, let's be generous, 1/10 of the people and 1/10 of the budget to produce a game that is, by popular consensus, infinitely better than games made with 10 times the resources. That's not just an upset, it's a fundamental change to the entire industry's logic. It's like a guy in the garage building a car that's faster, safer, and cheaper than a Ferrari. It shouldn't be possible. So the question is, how? How does a small studio from France named Soundful Interactive deliver something that outclasses the biggest names in the business? This doesn't make sense. So I started digging. I read reviews, watched interviews, and listened to the creators. And I started to see patterns, a set of rules that allowed them to create something so extraordinary. Now, whenever someone creates something truly awesome, there are two kinds of lessons to be learned. The first kind are industry-specific lessons. And I'm certain that right now in boardrooms across the world, executives are pointing at spreadsheets and asking their teams, how did they do this for a fraction of our budget? Kind of like in Iron Man.
Honestly, it's impossible.
Tony Stark was able to build this in a cave with a box of scraps!
But those aren't the lessons we're here for today. We're here for the second kind, the fundamental universal truths that apply to everyone. This isn't just a story about a video game. It's a story about David versus Goliath, about passion versus profit, about a small, dedicated team proving that creativity and a clear vision can triumph over brute force resources. Whether you're in software development, process automation, or just trying to build a better mousetrap, there are lessons to be learned from Soundful Interactive. I've distilled their success into 3 rules. 3 rules about how to make something that makes people stop in their tracks and say, whoa. So the first rule revolves around this guy, Guillaume Broche, who is French, so I'm almost certainly butchering his name. Guillaume is the visionary, the driving force behind Expedition 33. And his story starts at a place you might know, Ubisoft. Yes, that Ubisoft. The corporate behemoth, the AAA factory that reliably churns out games ranging from pretty good through aggressively mediocre to Guillaume was a cog in that machine, working on games that, by his own admission, he wasn't even excited to play. He was living in a world where the prevailing wisdom is that we must accept things as they are, not how we want them to be. He realized he was helping to paint the bars of his own prison, a very pretty, well-funded prison with a decent benefits package, but a prison nonetheless. He was bored. Soul-crushingly, is this all there is bored? And he had an idea for a turn-based Japanese-style RPG. Now, you have to understand, walking into a major publisher like Ubisoft and pitching a new unproven turn-based JRPG is like walking into a Shark Tank with a stake strapped to your head. It's a new IP, strike 1. It uses boring turn-based mechanics, strike 2. It's not a sequel or remake or a battle royale, strike 3. You're out. Big studios are allergic to risk. They'd rather release Assassin's Creed Suburbia than try something generally new. So Guillaume looked at the corporate mantra to accept things as they are, and his response was essentially, nah, I'm good. And he left. He decided he was going to build his dream game by himself. He started by learning Unreal Engine 5, probably fueled by pure spite and cheap coffee. He roped in a few friends, and together they cobbled a demo. They showed it around, and against all odds, they secured funding. That was the spark that allowed Soundful Interactive to become what it is today. When you watch interviews with Guillaume, you see this manic, brilliant energy. The guy is fanatically, beautifully obsessed. He's not just the driving force, he's the whole engine, the fuel, and probably the guy screaming faster from the hood. And he always says the same thing. He just wanted to create a game that he himself would have loved to play. And that, right there, is the first rule, carved in stone and lit with dramatic backlighting. Make the game you want to play. In other words, build something you know inside and out. Create from a place of passion and deep personal understanding. In my career, I started in finance operations. I worked in those P2P, O2C, R2R teams. I know those processes from the inside. I've been in the trenches, wrestling with the same terrible spreadsheets. So when my team and I build something now, that experience is our North Star. When I talk to subject matter experts, I know their pain points because I was them. It's not about technical sophistication or using the fanciest new models. It's about empathy. It's about knowing your end users so well that you can anticipate their needs before they even know what they are. It's about making them so happy with your product that they feel like someone finally gets them. That's the magic of making the game you want to play. So we've established rule 1, make the game you want to play, but that doesn't explain how a tiny team on a shoestring budget created a technical and artistic marvel. This brings me to the second thing that completely broke my brain about this game, the soundtrack. Now, I'm not just talking about the few catchy tunes. The soundtrack for Expedition 33 is a sprawling, epic masterpiece. We're talking 154 tracks, over 8 hours of music. It's got everything. Soaring, dramatic pieces like this. Heartwarming tunes like that one. Piano solos. Opera. Jazz. And some absolute bangers that will make you want to drive over the speed limit. Seriously, even if you are not planning on playing this game, you owe it to your ears to check this soundtrack out. We'll link a playlist of my favorite tracks in the description. Now, game music has been getting more recognition lately, but this thing toppled the actual real-life music charts in several countries. And it was all created by another Frenchman, and if you think my pronunciation of Guillaume Broche was bad, just you wait, Laurent Testart. Now, if you've never heard of Laurent, don't feel bad, there's a very good reason for that. This is the first soundtrack he has ever composed. Let me repeat that, just so it sinks in. The guy behind the strongest contender for the best game soundtrack of the year had never done it before. Before this, he was a classically trained musician and a guitar teacher who composed tunes in his spare time. He gave himself a challenge to compose and post one tune online every week, because of course he did. He then posted his best work on some obscure, no pun intended, French forum for indie game developers. And on that very same day, Guillaume Broche was browsing that same forum looking for a composer. He heard Laurent's work, loved it, and reached out. I can only imagine the conversation when something like this. Guillaume slides into his DMs, hey, love your stuff, wanna score our potentially career-defining epic RPG? And Laurent types back, absolutely. Full disclosure though, I've never actually scored a video game before, is that a problem? And Guillaume just replies, buddy, we've never made a video game before, you'll fit right in. This first-timer thing, it turns out, is a bit of a theme at Soundful Interactive. The lead writer? Yeah, she'd written things before, but never for a game. In fact, she wasn't even a gamer. She volunteered to do some initial voice acting. Guillaume really liked her ideas, and bam, she's the lead writer, creating one of the best written stories in the history of gaming. In one interview, someone asked Guillaume if it was true that over 50% of the team were juniors with little experience. And Guillaume just laughed and said, oh, it was probably closer to 80%. 80% in an industry that basically demands 5 years of experience for an unpaid internship. How does a team composed mostly of people who, on paper, have no business even making a game, go on to create one of the most successful games of the decade? And this brings us to rule number 2, and it's a big one. Talent and will over skill. When Soundfall was hiring, they were obsessive. They held hundreds of interviews to fill just 30 odd spots. They weren't looking for the most impressive resume, they were looking for a specific kind of person. In his own words, Guillaume was looking for the real spark in their eyes. Why? Because he understood a fundamental truth. You can teach skills. You can teach someone how to use a piece of software, but you cannot teach passion. You can't ignite that fire in someone who is just there to punch a clock. You hire for the spark because the spark is what gets you through the 5 years of brutal, painstaking development. Now let's be clear, this isn't the classic, slightly terrifying business model some software houses in Poland used to have, where they believed every software project can be delivered with a finite number of juniors. This is not about throwing cheap labor at the problem until it sticks. It's about a strategic bet. If you have the time and you have the senior people who can teach and mentor, it is far better in the long run to hire raw, passionate talent and shape them than to hire a skilled mercenary who's already jaded. Which leads me to a quote I read a long time ago from oil tycoon J. Paul Getty, of all people. He said, "In times of rapid change, experience could be your worst enemy." And I think that's the secret sauce right there. The team at Soundfall wasn't burdened by the way things are done. They didn't have years of AAA industry experience telling them, oh, you can't do that, or that's not efficient, or that will never get past marketing. Their inexperience was, in many ways, their greatest asset. It allowed them to approach problems with a fresh perspective, to create something new, because they didn't know the rules they were supposedly breaking. This philosophy is something we've had great success with at Office Samurai. Many of our people we hired straight out of university. Now it takes time, and it takes an incredible amount of work and patience to train them, but in doing so, we've been able to mold them into incredible, passionate experts who are now our seniors and leaders. We invested in the spark, and it paid off 100 times over. Because when you build a team that believes in the mission, a team that isn't just skilled but has the will to create something amazing, that's when you get to make something that makes people stop, look at it, and just say, whoa. And that brings us to the third rule. The one that every manager with control issues needs to have tattooed on the inside of their eyelids. With Expedition 33, it shows with the silent partner in their creative endeavor, the publisher. Now, in the AAA gaming world, the publisher is often less of a partner and more of a backseat driver who also holds the map, the keys, and your wallet. They're the ones funding the colossal budgets, so naturally they want a say. And their say usually sounds a lot like a focus group approved checklist for maximum profit extraction. Does it have a multiplayer mode? No. Add one. Can we sell different colored hats for real money? We must. Can we make the grind so tedious people will pay to skip it? Gentlemen, we have a business model. It's a system where the publisher pressures the studio to cram in features that often make the game objectively worse, all in the name of squeezing a few extra dollars out of the player. It's how you get artists who feel like they're just here to paint the bars of their own prisons. But the publisher for Clair Obscur Expedition 33 was a company called Kepler Interactive, and Kepler is different. They're like the anti-publisher. They're a publisher and a game developer built on a co-ownership model. Basically, the studios they publish become co-owners of Kepler itself. This isn't just a business structure, it's a philosophy. It means that people in charge of the money understand that creative vision can't be micromanaged into existence. They get that publisher meddling can be fatally destructive. So, what did they do with Soundfall Interactive? They gave them the money, and then, and this is the crucial part, they left them alone. Guillaume himself said Kepler supported them all the way while giving them total creative freedom. They believed in the vision enough to not screw with it. And this is the final and perhaps most important lesson here. Hire talent, and then, for the love of all that is holy, let them work. We are obsessed with hiring the right people, but the moment they walk into the door, we start interrupting them. We hover, we check in, we offer our brilliant little pointers and ideas, convinced we're helping. But if you've done your job right, if you've actually hired a team of talented, passionate people, then guess what? They are better at their jobs than you are. That's the whole point. Your job isn't to steer the ship, it's to build a great ship, hire a great captain, and then get off the bridge. Trust your team. Let them do their thing. So there you have it. The 3 rules that I believe allowed a tiny French studio to build a masterpiece that put the titans of the industry to shame. First, make the game you want to play. Create from a place of deep personal passion and empathy. 2, talent and will over skill. Bet on the fire in people's bellies, not just the certificates on their walls. And 3, hire talent and let them work. Trust your people and give them the freedom to be brilliant. This isn't just about video games. This is a blueprint for creating anything amazing. It's proof that a clear vision, a small dedicated team, and a whole lot of trust can achieve something that 1,000 people and $500 million can't. They can create something that makes people stop, look, and, in the immortal words of Keanu Reeves, just say, and that's the final quest marker for this episode. We've reached the end credits of the incredible story of Expedition 33, and honestly, I'm genuinely upset that it's over. Domo arigato for lending us your ears. Whether you were nodding along or just realized your company's project management strategy is a 7 out of 10, we appreciate you tuning in. A massive thank you, as always, to the core team behind the operation. Anna Tsuwala, our producer, who ensures our final product is a masterpiece and not a buggy mess released before it's ready. We record this at Vodzobit Studio, our own small indie studio where we try to make magic on a budget that is, shall we say, significantly less than 30 million. If this episode made you want to stand back and say wow, then please subscribe, share, and shower us with 5-star reviews. A 9.7 would also be acceptable. Follow us on social media for more insights that are hopefully more successful than a typical AAA game launch. Now, the game leaves us with a critical question: what will you paint? We'd love to hear from you. Drop us a line and tell us about the awesome thing you're building. Until next time, remember to question the way things are done. Your industry might tell you we must accept things as they are, not how we want them to be, but as this little studio proved, you don't have to listen. Go build something better. For those who come after, right? Matane.